It's Morgan here from the Fort St. John Public Library, and it is Saturday in the afternoon, so that means it's Saturday Crafternoon. And today we are going to make Manoma Monsters. These biting and talking puppets that you can make at home. But wait! At Saturday Crafternoon at the library, you would come to me and I would give you all of these perfect materials. I would give you a pool noodle and some yarn and some pipe cleaners and all sorts of other interesting things that I would put together with my glue gun. But what if you don't have all that at home? Well, that's okay, because this is Scavenger Crafternoon, and today we are going to look at what makes this project work and figure out how to make it using materials that I can almost guarantee you have at home. All you need is something to safely cut with, like scissors, and hopefully something sticky like glue or tape or even a stapler. We can make it work. Let's start making a Scavenger Crafternoon. All right, let's take a look at our Manoma Monster and see what it is that makes it tick. It's not all of these little craft supplies. It's really this shape. Here, let's take a closer look. The mechanism that lets the mouth open and close is a wedge-shaped piece cut out of the tube that goes a little more than halfway through. Then we've got a string, which is attached at the top, passes all the way through and pulls at the bottom to make the mouth open and close. The key to making something like this work is that the material that the tube is made out of needs to be a little bit flexible. I mean that you need to be able to squeeze it with your hands and get it squeezed almost in half, and hopefully it'll spring back a little bit. That's what makes a pool noodle pretty fantastic for this, but there are other things we can find around the house that will work just as well. Wait! Before you start scavenging, before you cut or glue or change anything from your house in any way, make sure you check with an adult in charge. Even though it might be something that's in your room, the people in your house might have a different opinion about whether or not it's a craft supply. Please don't tell your grown-ups that Morgan from the library told you to cut up your sister's sweater. First up, let's find a tube. Pool noodles really are a fantastic choice because they're very springy and durable, so they won't fall apart as we play with our puppets. If you have a pool noodle, you can cut it into 15 to 20 centimeter lengths or 6 to 8 inches and get about 6 puppets out of one. Another great choice that's just like a pool noodle is a piece of foam pipe insulation from a plumbing supply or building supply store. They basically look like small black pool noodles. Around your house though, the best bet is a paper tube. Either a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube will work. The most important thing is that the length of your tube is at least twice as long as the diameter across the top of the tube. If it's too short, it won't bend very well. So make sure that the length is twice as long as the diameter. I went looking and I found a Nerf dart. If I take the cap off, I've got a little pool noodle, so I can make a little puppet. Another thing that I can find is a straw. This will make a very small puppet, but it can be used in some cool ways too. Some other things that I found were a tin can. Let's see, I can squeeze it, but it doesn't really spring back, so I don't think this is going to work very well. I can also find other types of paper tubes. This one kind of works. It kind of springs, but look, its length is shorter than its diameter, so I can't use this one. So these are probably our best choices, but you might find something else in your house. Just remember, whatever material you're using needs to be squishable, and it wants to spring back a little bit, and the length needs to be twice as long as the diameter. The next thing we need is some sort of string, and really it can be anything. For this pool noodle, I'm going to use a piece of yarn. For this paper tube, let's use some butcher's twine. For the Nerf I'm going to use a piece of embroidery floss, and for the straw, I'm going to use some dental floss. Really, anything that's a string will work. All right, let's get this thing a mouth. I'm going to demonstrate on the pool noodle because that'll be easiest to see, but the process is exactly the same on all of the different tube materials. The first thing you need to do is decide where you want your mouth. On my version, I've got it right about in the middle, but you can experiment and make your own decisions about that. You're going to cut a wedge-shaped notch all the way through that goes about halfway through the width of the tube. If you'd like to, it might be helpful to draw yourself a little guide. So you're going to want an angle about like that, and you're going to cut in. All right, so using scissors, you're going to cut in and then flip over and do it on the other side. If it's not completely symmetrical, that doesn't really matter. It's a goofy Manoma Monster. It doesn't need to look perfect. So there we go. I've got this wedge shape cut out. And when I bend it, I see it's making a good motion like that. If someone at home has a craft knife, if an adult has one of these cut very well through pool noodles. And you can do this very cleanly and very easily, but that's something you should definitely only do with an adult. All right, let's get our string ready. I'm going to tie a loop in one end like this. And then I'm going to pass the rest of the thread through that loop to make a bigger loop, okay? You might have to practice that. Then I'm going to grab my scissors and I am going to make one small cut on what's going to be the back of its head. Just a little one, about that deep. Then what I'm going to do is take my loop, go around the top. This is going to be like its forehead. Pull it tight, and the leftover tail of my thread is going to tuck through that little slit I just cut and then down through the puppet. So this is a bit of a tricky part. Depending on how long your tube is and what your material is, you might have some fun getting this through the tube. You can stick your thread onto a stick and poke it through, or you can just figure it out. All right, there we go. I have got a biting tube monster. Let's take a look at what that looks like using our other materials. All right, I followed the same process for all of my different material choices. Here's my pool noodle. Here is the toilet paper tube. Here's our tiny little Nerf noodle. Here's our straw. And here's another one that I decided to try out. This is a paper towel tube that I've covered with duct tape. What that's going to do is give me a little bit more springiness, and it's going to make it last a little bit longer because paper, the more you fold it back and forth, the weaker it gets. So by adding a layer of plasticky tape to this, it's going to last a lot longer. So here are all of my different choices, and now all we have to do is decorate it. How you decorate your puppet is totally up to you. It absolutely does not need to look like mine. In fact, it shouldn't look like mine. It's yours. It's coming out of your brain. But let's look at our two basic types. You're probably going to be making one that's kind of foamy, like this one, or that's more like a paper product. So if you are using foam, you should know that foam doesn't really like to stick to a lot of things. So a lot of tape and glue doesn't work very well. For mine, anything that I needed to stick to it, I needed to use hot glue on a low temperature setting. And the other things I actually stuck in by making little hair plugs. So I'll show you how to do that. If you are using the paper products, you can basically glue or tape anything you want on there. You can give it teeth and eyes and wings and hair, and we'll take a look at a few different ways of doing that. Since it's definitely easier to stick things into foam than stick things to foam, let's make some hair plugs. The way we're going to do this is take a little cluster of yarn or string or paper or anything you're going to make something fluffy out of, and you need a little section of something that's a bendy wire. I've got some pieces of pipe cleaner, but I've also got a paper clip that's been broken in half. I've got some twisty ties from the top of coffee bags, and I've got a twist tie from the bulk section at the grocery store. All of these things have bendy wires in them that will work just like a pipe cleaner will. So what you'll do is get your section of hair or mustache or mane or whatever it's going to be, hold it in the middle, lay it over top of your bendy wire, and then bend that wire together until it almost looks like one piece, and you're going to stick that into the foam wherever you want it to stay, and then it'll stay there. I can also use these other non-standard pipe cleaners to give us some fun details, so I think maybe we can even make arms out of these coffee ties, and that's a good start. If we're using a paper tube, really we can stick or glue or tape anything we want onto that. I think what I'm going to do is get some old newspaper, and I'm going to cut a fringe into it so that I can make some fun hair. You cut a fringe by cutting from one end almost to the other end, sort of like you're cutting something that will look like grass. I'll keep cutting until I've got a nice big fringe. I could do this with colored paper if I want to, but I think most people can find flyers. And then I can either twist it up and tuck it in the inside, or I could wrap it around the outside and give it a little stick with some tape, and I think I'd have the start of some really silly hair. Because I might not have everything I need to make hair plugs for my foam puppet, I'm going to take that out and I'm going to try something different. This is something very similar to making a fringe out of paper. This was the sleeve of an old t-shirt that was in the rag bin. So I cut the sleeve off and I cut a fringe all the way through. Now what I'm going to do is hold on to all the pieces and give them a tug so they'll curl in on themselves a little bit. Then I'm going to take that, roll it all up, and stick it into the hole at the top of the pool noodle. And now I've got some other cool hair. Ready, puppets? Roll call. First up, pool noodle, t-shirt, twist ties, masking tape, yarn. Next up, toilet paper tube, paper, tape, twine, lion. This is its tail. Next up, paper towel tube, duct tape, string, markers, robot. Next up, Nerf dart, twist tie, string, markers, little dude. And last up, keeping it super simple, drinking straw, dental floss, yarn, headbanger. Did you like that? Why not take this idea and go even bigger? Using the same process of cutting a notch everywhere you want to bend, you can use a longer section of tube to make something that will bend more like this. At Crafternoon, we've used this to make scorpion tails, elephant noses, giraffe necks, and there's even a slightly more complicated version that will let you make something with 2 flapping wings. I think I'll make another video about that one later. I would love to see what you get up to, either with your Manoma Monster or something bigger. So please check out the link to our Facebook page in the description below so that you can show me your wonderful masterpieces. We'll see you again at another Scavenger Crafternoon.